Ever feel like you're walking and the ground's about to vanish? Like, whoa, what just happened? That's what reading Nietzsche can be like.
Yeah, he's definitely a thinker who can shake you up a bit.
It's thrilling, but also kind of unsettling, right?
Absolutely. Like he's pulling back this curtain,
Right.
exposing these assumptions we don't even realize we're clinging to.
And today, we're diving headfirst into one of his most provocative ideas.
Straight from the horse's mouth,
Thus spoke Zarathustra.
where he drops this bomb, God is dead.
And just like that, Nietzsche throws down the gauntlet.
Okay, so before we go any further,
Right.
we should probably clarify, he's not talking about some literal deity kicking the bucket.
No, not at all. It's way more profound than that.
So you're like, he's talking about the collapse of those absolute truths that we, for centuries, have used to make sense of the world.
The bedrock we've built our lives on, crumbling beneath our feet.
Exactly. It's this moment where those old guideposts, those moral and religious certainties, they just vanish.
And we're left staring into this abyss like, well, now what?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And into that abyss steps Zarathustra, this wandering prophet dude who's been like totally isolated for a decade, wrestling with what it even means to be truly alive when those old guarantees are gone.
He sounds like intense.
Oh, he is. Zarathustra is like Nietzsche's mouthpiece, just brimming with his frustration. And you know who he's most frustrated with?
Ooh.
The people content to just exist, the ones he calls the last men.
No.
These are folks who've traded in any grand aspirations for what? Just a lukewarm, comfy life. Bingo. They're all about comfort, conformity, no striving, no yearning for something more.
And this really gets under Nietzsche's skin, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Big time. He sees these last men as a warning
A warning about what?
about the dangers of prioritizing safety and ease over pushing our own boundaries, over becoming something more.
There's that word again. Becoming. It's like, for Nietzsche, just being is not enough.
Right. He's all about this dynamic tension,
Yeah.
this constant striving to evolve, to transcend our current selves. And this is where that whole idea of the Superman comes in, but not the kind of Superman you're probably picturing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm imagining capes and tights and...
Yeah, no, Nietzsche's Superman is far more philosophical.
Yeah.
It's this idea that clinging to outdated beliefs can be just as dangerous as taking a leap into the unknown.
Okay, so less about physical prowess and more about this constant questioning, self-examination, right? Like challenging even the things that make us feel safe and certain.
Precisely. It's about having the guts to question everything. And that includes the stuff we hold most dear.
So this Superman, it's more of a mental and spiritual ideal.
Exactly. You don't need any superpowers to be Nietzsche's Superman, just the courage to constantly reevaluate your own life. What are those things you could stand to overcome in your own thinking, your habits, your outlook? That's the kind of self-reflection we're going for in this deep dive.
So the Superman idea, we're not talking about superhuman strength theory. What does it actually look like to really live by this Nietzschean ideal?
Well, it all comes back to that void left by the death of God.
Right, because if those old moral structures, those rules, they're gone.
Gone.
Then how do we know what's right, what's wrong? It's like Nietzsche's challenging us to create our own compass.
Precisely. And that can feel incredibly daunting, but also kind of exhilarating.
Yeah, definitely both. Like we have this incredible freedom, but also this huge responsibility.
Exactly. And it's really interesting?
What's that?
That's where Nietzsche introduces this whole concept of amor fati.
Amor fati. Now that one's always tripped me up a bit, I'll be honest. Loving our fate, even the rough parts. I'm not sure I get the upside there.
I hear you. The radical idea, right?
Yeah.
But it all comes down to perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine going through something like, say, a job loss.
Okay.
Brutal, right?
For sure.
Most of us, we'd see it as this huge setback. But with amor fati, you might look back and think, losing that job, it forced me down a path I never would have considered. Maybe even a path that led you to something even more fulfilling.
Oh, I see. So it's about trusting that even what seems bad or painful could actually hold some kind of potential, some hidden good.
Exactly. It's like training yourself to see those hardships, those curveballs life throws at you as fertile ground for growth.
Which, honestly, is not what I expected when we started talking about Nietzsche.
Really? How so?
Well, he's got this reputation, right? This whole will to power thing. It often gets interpreted as this very aggressive, domineering philosophy.
Yeah, I can see how that phrase can be a bit misleading.
Mm-hmm.
But for Nietzsche, the will to power wasn't really about dominating others. It was about mastering yourself.
So less about brute force and more about Like self-discipline, the drive to push past your comfort zone.
Yes. It's that inner fire, that force that pushes us to create, to innovate, to constantly strive for something more than we are right now.
But like any kind of powerful force, it can be misdirected, right? I mean, history's full of examples where this desire for power has led to some pretty dark places.
Absolutely. I mean, think about dictators throughout history. These figures driven by this insatiable need for control and domination.
Right.
That's a total perversion of what Nietzsche was talking about. He'd argue that true strength, true power, lies in harnessing that will and directing it towards something creative, something that affirms life.
So it's like this raw energy inside all of us, and we get to decide. Do we use it to build something meaningful, something good, or do we let it tear things down?
That's a great way to put it. And Nietzsche, he gives us these clues on how to navigate this. He keeps emphasizing self-knowledge, the importance of questioning our values, and ultimately forging our own unique path.
And he also talks about the power of laughter, which seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
Counterintuitive? How so?
Well, you think about Nietzsche, you think about these big, heavy existential ideas.
Yeah.
But he's also saying, like, don't forget to laugh.
Exactly. He's reminding us not to take ourselves too seriously. There's this great anecdote in Zarathustra about an old magician and these higher men who are pretending to be all pious and holy.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
And it's so obvious that Nietzsche's like poking fun at these guys. He's basically saying, lighten up, folks.
I feel like life is absurd.
Totally.
But also, that's kind of hilarious when you really think about it.
Yes. That ability to laugh, to find joy, even in the face of all the absurdity, that's resilience. That's being able to stare into the abyss and laugh in its face.
It's interesting, though, because I feel like that laughter, that ability to find joy even when things are tough, it's connected to his ideas about beauty, about creativity.
100%. And that was huge for Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Art wasn't just decoration. For him, it was essential. Essential to how we survive.
Yeah.
He saw it was this way of grappling with the truth of existence, of staring those hard realities in the face without being totally obliterated by them.
He says something like, we have art in order not to die of the truth.
Yes, it's intense, but man, it rings so true.
It really does. It's like he's saying that beauty, creativity, it's not just some fluffy extra.
Right.
It's fundamental to how we make sense of the world, how we find meaning, purpose.
Exactly. Even in the face of suffering.
So when Nietzsche's talking about art, we're not just talking about, like, appreciating a pretty painting.
No, not just that. It goes way deeper.
Deeper how?
It's about cultivating this real sensitivity to beauty, like everywhere, seeing it in everything, even the unexpected stuff.
Okay.
And for Nietzsche, this wasn't just some like fluffy feel-good thing.
Right.
He saw this whole appreciation for beauty as deeply, deeply connected to his idea of the will to power.
Okay, now hold on a sec. How do those two things even relate to each other? Beauty and this will to power seems like a stretch.
Not for Nietzsche. Remember we were talking about how this will to power isn't really about brute force.
Yeah, more about that creative life force.
Exactly, that impulse to shape the world around us.
Okay, I'm following.
So then think, what is art if not this ultimate act of creation? Imposing order on chaos.
So you're saying when we create something beautiful, whether it's music, a sculpture, whatever, we're tapping into that same force that drives us to evolve.
Exactly. To become more than we are.
Huh.
And just like that will to power needs to be pointed in a healthy direction, something life-affirming, same goes for our creative energy.
And this brings us back to Nietzsche's whole thing about embracing all of life, doesn't it? The good, the bad, the painful stuff, too.
Yes.
He wasn't about to let us just hide away in some fantasy world, making pretty things to distract ourselves from the hard parts of life.
Nope, not at all. Think about the most powerful art, the stuff that really stays with you. Music, movies, books, whatever. It doesn't shy away from pain,
It goes there.
Yes. Heartbreak, despair, it stares those things right in the face, grapples with them, and somehow it still finds beauty there.
So is that what it means to really live a Nietzschean life? Like to have the guts to face the hard stuff, the pain, the doubt, whatever it is, and find a way to make something meaningful out of it? Maybe even something beautiful?
That's a great way to put it. It reminds me of Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence.
Oh boy, here we go. That one always messes with my head.
It's a real mind bender. Basically, imagine living your life over and over again, exactly as it is, for all eternity.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot.
Right, but it really makes you think. Because if you had to relive every joy, every heartbreak, every single choice you ever made, would you do it?
I mean, some days I'm not sure I'd relive yesterday, let alone eternity.
I feel you. But that's the point. It forces you to ask yourself, am I living in a way that I could stand to experience again and again?
Wow.
And for Nietzsche, the answer to that question depends entirely on whether we are truly embracing all of life, the highs and the lows, the victories and the struggles.
So we're talking about being active participants in our own lives,
Right.
not just letting life happen to us.
Yes.
Nietzsche was challenging us to step into the unknown, embrace the chaos, and make our own meaning. Even in a world stripped bare of those old guarantees, those comforting illusions, and maybe, just maybe, even find a reason to laugh along the way.
Absolutely. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Well, huge thanks to you for walking us through all of this. It's been a wild ride.
Anytime. This stuff is just as much a trip for me as it is for anyone else, believe me.
And to everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What really resonated? What questions are still bouncing around in your head? Hit us up on social media and let's keep this conversation going.